Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen, Alyx King, and Tom Wells here. Today is Friday, February the 15th, 2019. It's 8 a.m. in New York, 5 a.m. in Los Angeles, 1 p.m. in London, and Sydney, Australia is at 12 midnight. Wherever you are in the world, thanks for tuning in to another episode of LOA Today, your daily dose of happy. And I'm happy to welcome back Tom and Alyx because Fridays are always fun. Friday mornings are where we kind of let our hair down and go off in all kinds of different directions, which actually in my case isn't a whole lot because I don't have all that much hair. But nevertheless, you do it to whatever extent you can. And you're never, yeah, that's right.
I make up for everybody.
It's all about Alyx.
Alex's hair is all over every place, every single day. It's a different place. And Alex, you got this non-color thing going on. I mean, you've been doing magentas and greens and blues for like months now, and all of a sudden, it's what's going on? I mean, is this a case where I actually really have to adjust my set? I mean, I don't understand.
No, Mike suggested when we first met, he was like, "What's your natural hair color? I think you would look good in your natural hair color." And I was like, "I haven't seen that since I was 16."
So you felt it was long past due? Is that it?
Yeah, so he was like, well, let's give it a shot. And I was like, all right.
Okay.
We'll see what happens. And then I ended up liking it, so here we are.
Oh, okay. Well, hey,
it looks good, really.
That's the main thing. I mean, as long as you like it, that's all that really counts anyway.
Yeah.
If you feel good about it, then you're going to feel good.
I even decided to postpone the pink.
You postponed the pink?
Mm-hmm.
That's very alliterative. I like that.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I love alliterations.
So obviously we are off to a flying start with the humor and the lightheartedness, which is a good thing, especially on a Friday, because Fridays are right before Saturdays and Sundays when people take the weekend off, those who are able to anyway, and have a good time and so forth. So now that we've set the proper mood and the tone, this is a Q&A, and if you are listening to the live stream, feel free to type a question into the comments section. If you're not listening to the live stream, then, we'll send one in, and we'll do it the next time that we do a show after we receive your email or whatever you send. But in the meantime, while we're waiting for comments to start coming in, questions to be asked, we're going to do our own round robin of question asking. And I'm going to go to Tom first because he told me before the podcast that he was working on his question. So, Tom, what's the first question for us to address today?
Okay, see if you like this one. When you're going through your day, what do you guys do to monitor the things that come to you from the outside and from your own thoughts? So I'm just curious, like how you handle media, music, any kind of input coming in from other people, and then your own thoughts. What's it like for you, each of you?
Well, I find that the door is helpful.
The door?
The door, yes. If I keep the door closed, then when Louise is watching television or listening to something on YouTube or whatever, it can't interfere with what I'm doing. So closing the door is a very useful way of dealing with that stuff. Now, is it the best way to use my mind? Maybe, maybe not. But on the other hand, it helps create sanity, and that's a good thing. So so that's probably my first strategy. And then beyond that, you said monitoring, and I think that is the key word, monitoring, because if we are, the popular word these days is mindful, right? If we're mindful about what's going on in our moment-to-moment experience, then we can also be aware when we're, perhaps, looking at the smartphone a little bit longer than we should have, and spending too much time on the social media, or doing something like looking at news, or politics, or one of the other horrible things that just tear us down and make us feel really miserable. And the moment that we start noticing that kind of stuff, now we have the power to make a change if we want to, or we can just continue on the negative vortex, whichever way we want to go. But the point is that mindfulness makes a big difference. So that's I mean, I just try to be mindful throughout the day. I don't really have I don't think I have a procedure or, something. I just kind of try to be aware throughout the day.
Yeah. So you kind of listen to your thoughts and you decide whether or not you really want to follow a certain line of thinking sometimes, and say, I don't want to go down that road.
Now, it is annoying at times because I find myself following a line of thought that I just said, no, I don't want to follow that line of thought, and then I do it anyway.
Yes.
And I say to myself, what are you doing, Walt? What's going on? While I'm watching or listening or doing the thing that I don't want to be doing. And sometimes what happens, I'm finding, is that over time I'm learning more and more to take advantage of noticing that and shift and do something else. And that's really it. It's learning that new habit of every time I notice that I'm going down the rabbit hole, just go in a different direction. You know, I don't have to climb down that rabbit hole. I can avoid it if I want to. I can step around it. I can jump over it. I can pretend it's not there. So that's all right. That's my answer. What do you think, Alyx?
I'm very mindful of everything that's around me. I tend to dictate what goes on around me. So I have the ability to control what comes in and what goes out. So, you know, I have a set TV schedule for the whole day. So my DVR comes into play in sometimes. So yeah, and if I decide to clean something, I have my set playlist for my music. So that's what's coming in. I definitely avoid the news at all costs. I don't like it. And if I see something on Facebook I don't click on it. So
what about if you're listening to lyrics of a song or you're watching some movie or something? Do you monitor that at all and figure, like, if I'm focusing on this, it's going to bring more of that about in my life? Or do you just sort of blow it off? Or how do you choose?
Nah, I like
you
to
sort of
leave
watch everything.
I like to leave it in the fantasy section. So like it's like being surreal. Like it's happening, but it's not happening to me, so it's not really there. You know,
it's not really affecting you.
It's not really.
So you tell yourself that it doesn't really affect you, right?
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
It's like other people's drama, like that I give advice on. Like it doesn't affect my life because it's not my drama. But however, I will give you advice.
It sounds similar to what somebody does when they're a horror movie fan. They don't actually believe that the horror is going on. In fact, their mind is saying, well, this is a bunch of baloney, but they're enjoying the trip anyway.
Not only that, but they're also not a murderer. So, you know.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Hopefully not making a crash course.
Right.
Yeah, we want to try to avoid that. So, okay. Well, that's great, because that means that you've developed enough mind control. There's a movie theme, right? You've developed enough control over your own mind that you can actually focus where you want to focus when you want to focus, and that's fabulous. That's almost that's almost the whole thing right there.
Not so much, because then at night, when my mind starts to wander, I'm not in control of that at all. So, and I get in the same mindset that Walt was saying about you going down the path that you didn't want to go down. So it's like you start thinking of cats, and it's like, no, I don't want to think about cats. So let's not think about cats. Why didn't I want to think about cats? What was that thing about cats that I didn't want to think about? So that's how my mind works.
And why did you say at night? You said it's worse.
Well, usually at night, because that's when I try to quiet down to try to go to sleep. So that's when my mind has the most freedom. It's the only time when the volume is not up in my life. So once I turn the volume down in life, that's when my mind's like, freedom!
Now, that's interesting, because actually that's when I have the best control over my mind. And you're describing just the opposite to that. But I've gotten really good at, like, let's say I wake, in the middle of the night, go to the bathroom, come back. And a lot of people at that point, including myself in the past, would just kind of lie awake like, oh, geez, I can't go back to sleep. And all these thoughts are going through the head, right? Well, I've gotten to the point now where I can, if I recognize what's going on, I can focus on breath and limit my focus to that. And the moment I can feel myself off onto some topic somewhere, I can pull it back pretty quickly now. I do that easier than I do during the day. So that's interesting. You're experiencing the opposite of what I'm experiencing.
Yeah, because I do that, but I also am so nosy that I want to know where we're going on this little trip that we're taking. So I'm like, let's see where this goes. Instead of bringing it back to one, I just, I'm like, well, why are we thinking about cats? Let's find out.
So does it necessarily cause you any problems or not?
Yes, it causes me anxiety problems and sleep problems.
Oh, okay. Oh.
But
how is that different from what you do during the day? Because during the day...
Well, during the day, my outside is, the volume is up all the way, all the time. So I don't have time to think in my own head.
So you're using the outside volume to block what's going on inside?
Yeah.
Oh,
What do you mean? You've always got something going on with media?
Yes, my TV is never off. My TV never turns off.
Wow.
Day, night, never.
Wow.
Well, she's got to have material for her podcast. She's doing
that too.
You know,
that too.
She's doing a podcast on what are the latest spoilers for what's coming up on the next season.
Yep.
But still, I mean, that's a lot of noise. I mean, for me, it works the other way around. If I have outside, that's why I close the door. If I have outside noise, actually, that's the part I need to work on the most. Having a way to block that so that I can focus internally. But you're using that to block the internal. So I guess I'm just going about it the other way around. You're embracing the outside, so you don't have to deal with the internal. I'm knocking away the outside in order to handle the internal.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, now we've identified that. Tom, what's your answer to your own question?
I don't want to answer that. No. I do what I do. Let's see. What do I do? I basically don't tune into anything that I don't want to tune into. Lately, I have been a little bit. I actually have been wanting to be distracted at the end of the day and kind of just relax. And one way I've been doing it is I've been watching the news a little bit, but just a little bit. Just to see what the horror story or the comedy show is like, and then I go right to Stephen Colbert and I watch him make jokes about it for about 10 minutes, and then
there you go.
And so I get in about a half an hour of television now on a number of days, just as a little. And I wasn't doing that for about 5 years. I wasn't turning on any news or any television. And I just get it on the internet. I don't have a TV or anything. But
what? How do you survive? Oh my God! I'm never coming to visit. Oh my God!
Well, I have one in the garage. I could drag it in the house for you. I do, but I just decided I don't. I have so many other things I'm interested in. So most of my day, I just go from one thing I'm interested in to the next thing I'm interested in. So I might pick up the guitar and play it for half an hour, read something for a while, go out to some appointment. I mean, have a client, have a phone call. I have a number of people. I have this one woman in Minnesota, and we talk sometimes 3 or 4 hours at a time. We'll talk several times a week, and I do sessions with her. We exchange sessions because she's also a coach of emotional clearing facilitator. So we'll do sessions with each other. I have another woman I do tapping sessions with her. We exchange tapping sessions. I mean, it's kind of a crazy lifestyle, but I like it because it's always exciting, a lot of change going on. But as far as monitoring what's going on in my head, I guess I do that thing that Walt was saying. I just be mindful constantly of what I'm telling myself, and try to notice. Is this benefiting me? Is this what I want to be listening to?
Yeah,
so that's kind of how I do it.
That makes sense. I actually have a question for Alyx specifically, because after what you said, Alyx, I've been kind of sitting here thinking about it, and I realized for you particularly, yeah. Because you're talking about how you use the outside noise during the day to block the inside noise. So I'm wondering, how do you maintain mindfulness during the day? Because mindfulness is usually about what you're feeling inside. But if you're blocking what's inside, how do you feel it? I don't quite get that.
I ignore everything. I don't want to be in my head. So there's too much going on. So that's what the outside noise is for, is to distract me from the inside noise. So I'm not mindful and mindless, actually. So if you want to think about it that way, yeah.
So Alyx is promoting the new philosophy, mindlessness. I like this.
Yes.
Yeah. Actually, there's a lot to be said for that.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Just don't bother with it all. Just go with the flow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
then when the flow doesn't go, I do get highly upset.
Oh.
Yeah. So I haven't figured that part out yet.
Yeah. And isn't mindfulness, the heart and the mind, we've talked about this before, how the two are heavily interconnected, especially in terms of neural pathways. So isn't mindfulness a lot of that about what's going on inside the heart, and how does that play into what you're doing during your day?
What? I don't know. You know what? It only comes up when I'm interacting with people, and I don't. Other than the podcast and a couple of friends and my mom, I don't really do that a lot. So it doesn't come up. So I don't know.
It's not an issue.
Like, I usually use my heart for like my gut feeling. So, I feel like your heart and your stomach are connected. So when I use my heart for my gut feelings, and that only comes up when people come to me and like, oh, I think he's cheating. And I'm like, he probably is. If you think he's cheating, he probably is. And, giving advice to my friends and stuff like that. Or just, checking in on my friends, seeing how they're doing, how their significant others are doing and how their kids are doing and stuff like that. But other than that, nope, doesn't come up. Because I'm too busy watching TV and minding other people's business.
I love that. Minding other people's business. The one thing that we usually advise people not to do, you do as a policy. That's funny.
Well, that was the whole point of Facebook, is so everybody can mind everybody's business.
Everybody else's business. Yeah, this is true. That happens an awful lot.
So I got to check in at least once a day, see who's pregnant, what's going on, who's divorced, what.
But it occurs to you also, I mean, one of the things you've talked about is how you have to deal with agoraphobia, the fear of being out in public spaces. And I wonder if some of that, maybe you can tell me, is some of that perhaps tied to the fact that when you're out in a public space, you do have to deal with that outside noise that you just said you don't have to deal with on a regular basis.
If it's not in my control, it's overwhelming to me. Yeah. So, like I can control the volume of my TV, but I can't control the volume of the CVS that I'm in. So that's what it's like.
So it's almost like you're trying to do what I'm trying to do, which is to find strategies for creating basically a mental barrier so that I can screen out on demand what's outside, so I can check inside during the day. And that's why I talked earlier about closing the door. I close the door in order to block that noise out because I haven't...
Well, I close the door into people.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, I'm just doing it. I'm doing it to my wife. That's it. One person, not the entire world. But this is important stuff because I really suspect most people do have a lot of challenge trying to maintain that mental boundary. And the fact that you described how for you it's creating the outside noise or having the outside noise to block the inside, and for me it's the other way around. But basically, we're still trying to do the same thing. We're just looking at it from two different perspectives.
Yeah, we have the same goals but opposite,
approaches. Yeah,
approaches. That's the word. Yeah.
And I'm not sure what Tom's approach. I mean, do you do that one way or the other, Tom, or are you on a completely different plane here?
Well. I guess I'm trying to ask myself that question, listening to you guys talk, and I feel like what I do is I just try to have total friendship with my mind. That it's just completely me, and everything that comes up in my mind is me being in a good relationship with myself. So I'm always looking at, well, whatever I'm saying, it is simply me, and therefore I better let it be as good as it can possibly be, because there's no such thing as being my own enemy. I cannot be that, and but sometimes it can sort of seem like that. Wow, I'm making it hard on myself. And then those are the things when I recognize if I make it hard on myself, that's where my work lies. Oh, this is where I want to do my therapy around that. I want to do my reading around that. Like why do I sabotage my own ability to be to work with myself? It's okay if a thought comes up that's negative, so-called negative, because that's just showing me something else. It's I don't always try to immediately go to the positive with no matter what comes up. I just look at stuff. I guess it's being an observer. That's what it is. I try to just observe a lot. Oh, interesting that I'm going down that path. But I look also that I'm getting impulses from source. That so many things that are coming, I look for what's the what's the grace in this? Why am I getting, led down that path? There must be something there for me that's of value. I do that a lot too. But yeah, sometimes I'm just judging and blaming myself too. Saying,
don't we all?
Yeah,
it happens. It does.
Yeah,
interesting that you use the word observer too. That you play the role of the observer. I say that because I felt like I played the role of the observer a large chunk of my life, and realized I was cutting out a lot of my life by doing that. So that's why I'm trying to learn more and more every single day how to be the participant rather than the observer. And I don't always succeed. I'm succeeding more than I used to. There was a time where I never succeeded, and that's no longer the case. So definite progress, because I can succeed sometimes. But that's
what's the difference? What's the difference between being a participant and an observer, though? Really, I mean, I don't guess I see that.
I guess to me, the observer is somebody who is simply sitting back and not participating.
Oh, well, because when I'm observing watching myself participate.
Oh, okay. So you're able to do both at the same time.
Tom just has to make it complicated.
Yeah, he does. That's for sure. Oh, we know that about Tom.
He's like, oh yeah, I'm just sitting back watching, observing myself participate. What?
Well, let's say you're like when I was doing comedy improv, and you step into a scene, and you watch yourself play this farmer who has a southern accent, and it's like, and then I watch it and I listen to see what the other character says, and then I watch and listen to see what I say back, and then what I say back gives him, that other character, an impetus,
line.
And so it's sort of, but sometimes I guess you're just sort of so much in the flow that you're observing at the same time as you're saying everything. So I guess to me it's like you could just do both. It's just everyone's always observing everything.
Yeah.
Aren't they? I mean, when are you not observing what's happening? There's always something. There's always something bigger that's observing the good and the bad, and the right and the wrong, and the beautiful and the ugly. It's like we don't have to become those things.
Right. Right.
We can observe that. Oh, right now I'm feeling ugly, or right now I'm feeling beautiful. Right now I'm feeling like a failure. Right now I'm feeling like a success. But that's just what's happening. Those are like the waves on the surface of the ocean. But the ocean is unmoved by what the waves do, really. So that was another question that I had for today was, how do we be in that place where we are not always thrown about by the ups and downs of life? How do you not be the victim of your own life?
Well, that actually ties into what I was going to say just now, because you talked about I talked about the observer and participant being different roles, and that when you're observing, you're not participating, vice versa. You talked about how you're doing both at the same time, and I was trying to think. Well, actually, I didn't have to think very hard. It came pretty quickly. What's an example of where I am participating but not observing? And I actually mentioned it before the podcast. I talked about, we talked about, as we often do, okay, do we have our questions ready so that we can bring them up during the podcast? And you volunteered that you had, so that's why I went to you first. But I mentioned that I've been developing the skill of being able to ask a question without knowing what the question is going to be by opening my mouth during the podcast and waiting to see what's going to come out. And when I do that, it bypasses my conscious mind entirely. So the question comes out, and then I can take a moment, presumably while the person I asked is trying to answer the question, to ask myself, what did I just say? There was no observer going on during that moment. So it can be argued that when I think that's coming from my inner Walt, my inner being. So if it's coming from there, am I observing it? And I think during the time I'm receiving it and spitting it out, I'm not observing anything at all.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting question. I got a song that came to me in a dream this week. And, I was in this barn with all these people, and some group came in that was like Crosby, Stills and Young, who Alyx doesn't remember. But anyway, they're
but
sort
I did ask my mom.
You did?
I did. She was like, oh, yeah.
Well, anyway, I had a dream, and they came into this barn. Did I already tell you guys this? But anyway, And then one of the members was out on the lawn, and he was without a guitar, and he just started singing this song. And I was looking out this window. I was sitting next to this window watching him sing this song. And so then when I woke up, I went and I wrote down the song. I remembered the tune, and I found the tune on the guitar, and then I started writing down all the lyrics. And in a way, it was like what you're saying, Walt. I was just participating. I wasn't, I don't know what word was going to come next in that song, but they all came out, like eight verses or 6 verses. And, but in another way, I can say I was observing that whole thing. I was watching as each word came out. I was having ideas about every word that came out. So there's a lot going on inside of us, I think, at least inside of me. Maybe I'm an ultra complicated person, but but I just noticed that
happens to me with joke writing a lot.
Yeah.
I get jokes in my dreams, and I'm like,
yeah?
I gotta get up and
cool.
write this down.
Yeah, cool.
So when you're getting those jokes in your dreams, I mean, do you feel like you're both observing and participating? Are both of those functions happening?
Yes, I do feel like I'm observing and participating because I'm observing myself on stage telling the jokes and also participating because I'm the one telling the jokes. So.
Both. Okay. And you're actually feeling like you can actually feel yourself on stage and feel the stage under your feet and smell the audience or whatever else, all that kind of thing.
Kind of see the audience because the lights are really high, so you can't really see the audience. But yeah, they can feel the laughter and yeah.
That's pretty
kind
cool.
of the definition of lucid dreaming is when you're in your dream and you're able to observe and participate at the same time.
Ooh.
So that you're able to.
Now I feel fancy.
Yeah, you're a lucid dreamer.
Nice.
Yeah, I felt like I'm becoming more lucid in my dreams because I find myself in dreams saying, "Wait a minute, do I want to do that?" It's like observing what I'm doing and deciding if that's really what I want to be involved in.
Right. Yeah.
But they say when you can get to the point where you're so involved that you can literally shape, it can have a huge effect on you shaping your life when you're out of your dream, when you're in your conscious waking state. By what you did in your dream, you can affect a whole lot how your life unfolds. I'm just starting to learn about that. I think it's a fascinating area of study. Participation and observation.
Well, then I've got another question for you guys, and I don't know for sure that this is connected, but I suspect it is, and that's why I'm asking it. Do you guys find that you're able pretty easily to create images, scenes, events, videos, whatever you want to call them, in your mind and retain them for some period of time?
Awake or asleep?
Awake.
Yes, but probably only for like 30 seconds, maybe 60.
Okay. How about you, Tom?
I'm similar. I don't think I'm very good at it. And I have one of my goals, actually ever since I got into law of attraction, it's been one of my big goals is to get better at it, but I don't work at it very hard. And so I'm not very good at it. Yeah. I wonder if I do it more than I realize about just things that aren't these goals I have. Instead of seeing myself, say, with the new car I want or with the relationship I want and imagining myself doing all those fun things I would do in that relationship. But how often do I actually see myself not having the relationship I want? Excuse me.
Well, let me add an extra layer of detail here and see how this affects your thinking.
Yeah.
Neville Goddard and Cindy Chavez and I have talked about this quite a bit. He makes the example of climbing a ladder as a way of describing how do you visualize, how do you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, in his words. How do you create this little vignette in your mind that you're going to try to that represents what you're trying to attract into your life. So the classic story is the guy who wanted to have an Arthur Murray dance studio. He wanted to have a franchise of that, and so he just visualized being congratulated by the director of whatever, who's at Arthur Murray saying congratulations on your new franchise. The example that Neville gives about how, maybe it's just Cindy, I can't remember if Neville gives this, but I know Cindy talks about this one, is the difference between looking at a ladder to be climbed or watching yourself climb the ladder and actually going over and feeling the ladder and climbing the ladder.
Yeah.
One is more
Neville
observational.
Talks about that.
Yeah, is that Neville? Okay, so one is more observational.
I mean, he talks
one's
about
more participatory. Yeah. And when you're in the participatory, you're actually experiencing, reaching out. You can feel the ladder. You're putting your feet on the ladder. You're climbing the ladder. And and he's describing that as not so much that you're observing yourself. You're actually participating in it. So that's why I kind of differentiate between the two. But you guys are kind of blurring the boundary there. So I'm wondering, when you're thinking about climbing the ladder, are you actually climbing the ladder, or are you watching yourself climb the ladder? And if you're climbing the ladder, is it really true that you're observing yourself, or are you just simply doing it?
I think it depends.
Depends on what? Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. It depends on what day it is. I don't know which way the wind's blowing. It depends.
Depends on what you ate for breakfast.
Yeah, exactly. Because sometimes I'll picture myself climbing the ladder and I'll just watch myself, or probably an elevator because I'm lazy. But but most of the time, I'm actually physically climbing the ladder. So
the rest of us are climbing the ladder, and Alyx is visualizing actually walking into the elevator and pushing the button. That's her visualization.
Yeah, because I work smarter, not harder.
I love it.
Well, the thing that I got from Neville was that it's really important to have as much sensation going on as you possibly can when you do a visualization. Like, so, like they even say, like, just picture one thing. Like, if you want a brand new house, this is what I did for a while. Picture the key going into the lock of that house, and
tell
the door,
me, because I need to know this.
And the door opening, and you're looking in and seeing what you want to see, right? Okay. But then don't go any further than that, is the way that I understood it. Then just every day spend 5 minutes or 1 minute even just opening that door with that key. So maybe you see the key in your hand, you see it going in the lock, you see it turn, you see the door open, and you see that scene that you want to see inside there. And every day just keep doing that, and one day you will be there in that scene. It'll have to happen, according to Neville.
Yeah. And not just the seeing. I mean, you're right, but he also talks about grabbing that key and feeling the key in your hand. And what's it feel like when you stick the key into the keyhole, and as you're turning the key, and the resistance that you're feeling, and then you're turning the doorknob, and what it sounds like as you're turning the doorknob, and what it feels like as you're standing on the floor, because you can feel the pressure of the floor against your feet while you're standing there turning the doorknob. You do the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this is the essence of thought creation that we're talking about. In my understanding, is that how like in a way, I think as we progress as humans, we might get better and better at creating what we want by getting really good at this ability to visualize and to feel and to hear, feel, hear, and see, and even smell or whatever the things that we want, and the better we get at that, the more likely it will come about. That's my understanding. And yet, do I spend a lot of time practicing that? I don't, and I wish, in a way, I wish I did. Although I'm trying to make it a regular practice. I have a little notebook I created, and it's got like 4 of those exercises in it. And I try to read one every day, do at least one of them every day. Because there's one way that I've heard it described by Seth is that you're the hypnotist, and you have to hypnotize yourself into the thing that you want by totally believing for 5 minutes a day that you are that thing, that you have that thing. Like for 5 minutes a day, completely see yourself in that house, looking out the windows, going to the kitchen sink, all the stuff that you want that house to be, standing outside looking at it. For 5 minutes a day, do that. And that'll be super powerful, that you will find yourself there if you can just do that for 5 minutes a day. And I manifested on things like that, but I swear it's a very hard practice for me to develop.
Well, that's part of the reason I asked. I mean, and I was interested that both of you said that, yes, it's hard. I think, Alyx, you said you can do it for like 30 to 60 seconds, and then after that, it's kind of hard to retain it. For me, the image part, if I can hold on the image part for half a second, I'm doing well. So it's even more difficult from that perspective. I'm serious. That's about the best I can do. And even then, sometimes I can't even get the image at all. But I'll tie into the other senses. I can often hear what's going on. That I can create that in my mind pretty easily, and I can often recreate the touch. Occasionally, I can even recreate smell. But the point is, by combining my senses together, I can in some way create something along that line. And when I do that, when I'm practicing that, when I'm trying to do that as part of my regular experience, I do find that I tend to have a better experience. So does that mean that I can't do anything unless I have the vision component? Well, actually, no, I found a way around that. Like right now, Louise and I are kind of like you, Alyx, and your mom, trying to manifest a new home. And I found a video that was put out by a home contractor. It was one of his model homes that he created. It's what they call the craftsman style, which Louise likes, and I like that style too. And it's a really nice home. It's a model home, and he's taking you through with his video camera, room by room, showing you what's there, and it's beautiful, it's really nice. So I took elements of that and made myself what I call a video board, a video vision board. So that because I have trouble envisioning
2019 style.
Yeah, exactly. So I can actually watch the movie of this thing that I'm trying to attract into my life. And Louise went through a number of real estate sites, and if she saw a picture of a kitchen she liked, she took that and pasted it into a Word document. Or if she saw a living room she liked, she pasted that into a Word document. So she's basically piecing together her vision of what it was like.
So she's building her own house. I like it.
Yeah, so we're basically using the electronic version of creating vision boards, essentially.
Yeah.
And what's that?
There's a whole new science or technology that's being developed, which you probably know about. But it's when you wear the thing on your head, the virtual reality thing, and and they say that those things are getting developed to the point where you're going to be able to put in anything you want to have happen, and you'll be able to just visualize it in that thing for a certain amount of your day, and it'll become so real for you because you're seeing it in such a realistic way that then it just will manifest in your life. And I know, have you heard of Bob Monroe? He was like this famous media mogul back in the 70s and 60s who became, he was really amazingly good at out-of-body travel, leaving his body like almost every night and going on these journeys. So he ended up writing several books about it, and he created an institute in Virginia called the Monroe Institute, where you can go and learn to do out-of-body travel. And so he developed all these technologies around it, where you use sound and these little booths that you go into. And he said that when you're in those other realms, you have to be very careful. One of the biggest things you're learning when you do that is that your thoughts will instantly create reality for you. And so if he said he would just think about some friend of his, and suddenly he'd be at that guy's house, and he'd be walking in that guy's kitchen, and the guy would be there at the sink, and it'd be like, oh, how did I get here? Oh, that's right, I just thought about Joe, and here I am at his house,
Yeah.
But he said it was really a tricky thing to learn over the years of his practicing out-of-body travel. And so it made me really think that, wow, thought is, because so many people, and especially people who do that kind of out-of-body travel, say thought is how everything is being created. And that we just don't realize how much of the time we are creating everything by what we're anticipating and expecting and thinking and feeling. It's bringing about the next thing. Of course, that's the whole idea of law of attraction, right?
Right, exactly.
It's true. It's fascinating.
It's a powerful thing.
It's very powerful. And it's fascinating all the different ways we're learning to be good at it, to practice it. I mean, that's one of the things about this video approach. And I mentioned earlier how Louise and I had dinner on Wednesday night with a friend who is a listener of the podcast. His name's David. He's an Elway enthusiast. He is a real estate agent. And we shared with him, after we met with him, he asked for the video I talked about and the photos that I talked about that Louise had collected. And I sent it to him, and his reaction was, oh, this is definitely happening. This is definitely happening. Because he appreciates that. I mean, he's an LOA enthusiast, and he understands how this stuff works. So now that he knows what to look for us, he's convinced we're going to be able to find this house that we want. And we're looking forward to it. I don't know exactly how that will play out, what I do know is this. Look what happened just by me finding that video and Louise finding those photos and kind of collecting them and playing them for ourselves and so forth. It led to us having a meeting.
Well, it's not up to you to know how it's going to play out.
Yeah, exactly. But look how it is playing out. It's kind of cool. Like, oh, well, okay, we have this guy, this friend who is also a listener to the podcast, who is a real estate agent, who is now totally caught up in the fever of what it is we're trying to attract into our lives. And he's ready to go make it happen. Cool, That's a good thing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what the book that you wrote was entirely stories of people who have manifested things by those methods, by those law of attraction methods. And
it's very
that's what the show is about.
It's reinforcing when you know that there's story after story after story, ideally in your own life, but at the very least in somebody else's lives, that you can point to and say, this really is working. It's 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 part of that programming or reprogramming, I guess, that we all are learning to do as aspiring, deliberate creators, so that we can be producing the deliberate results we're looking for time after time after time. Building the self-confidence, building the belief, building the strength of character and the integrity that we can actually stay focused on what we want at all times.
In a way, it's like as kids we did it, I think, right? I mean, you always hear those stories of the little... I mean, I remember my daughter, when she was like 5 years old, she would be in the back seat of the car with somebody, little friend of hers, who I couldn't see, and she'd be a princess, and they'd be acting out something together, and she'd completely believe it, And I don't remember having little fantasy friends when I was a kid, but imagine if when kids were in school, one of the major parts of the curriculum was to teach them to use their imaginations to create what they want in their life. Instead of everything being so random, the way we were raised and the way people are still growing up, that there's just not a lot that's telling us that we're completely in control of what we're thinking is causing what's showing up in our life. What we're imagining, what we're feeling, what we're expecting is largely going to be what we're going to get. It's not just random. But man, I feel like now I'm at an older age, and it's sort of like if somebody came to me and told me, you can learn Chinese at any age, and it'd be like, yeah, I could, but I'm not sure I want to go through that. It's going to take me 5 years and tremendous dedication, and I have to be really motivated to want to do that. And I think learning how to use my mind to create my reality is similar to that, even though I'm using my mind to create my reality every second. It's like,
Well, you use the word there, I think. You use the word being motivated. You have to be motivated. And I think that really is the key, because not only do you need to be motivated, I think what's happening with a lot of us is we're trying to figure out what it is that does motivate us. What floats our boats? What makes us excited? So many of us, especially with the way the school systems are structured and the way most careers through companies are structured and so forth, there's not a whole lot of opportunity for exploring what floats our boats. And yet that's what we need the most. So in a sense, I feel like that's where that's probably the biggest thing what we're trying to learn. What gets us excited? What is it that really motivates us in life and that we really want to pursue that particular path?
Yeah, you would think that most everybody kind of knows that in a certain way, but I suppose in another way we're just sort of on a default. We default to like what's happening, right? I guess we default to the next thing that shows up, or the next program that comes on the TV, or
exactly.
I don't know. It's odd though, because it seems like we all want certain things, but we don't know how to focus in on them.
It's assumed, everybody assumes that when you graduate from high school, you know what you want. And yet, if you survey the kids of a particular class anywhere in the U.S. or around the world for that matter, if you survey them and ask them, well, what are you planning to do? Half of them won't be able to tell you, and the other half will give you a half-hearted answer because they feel like they're supposed to. But you won't find many who really actually know what it is they want to do. There are going to be a small minority who do know, who are going to say, oh, yeah, I'm going to be doing this.
That was me.
Here's my plan. I know exactly what I'm going to do. But that's not... Well, you tell me, Alyx. You were like that. If you think about the people you graduated with, how many of them do you think didn't really know what they wanted to do?
I think I was the only one who knew what they wanted to do.
There you go.
But in saying that, I am also one of the only people that use their degree to this day. People who, go to college just because they're supposed to, end up taking some class and getting a degree in something and don't end up using it not even 2 years later. So, no.
Well, and so much
messed up. So.
Oh yeah, and so much of the society is organized around these certain categories. You either go into business, or you go into science, or you go into psychology, it's like there's these categories. And I remember being in college and saying, I don't like any of those categories. Is this it? It's like, come on, there's certainly life's more than this. And so being a hippie was one of the categories. It wasn't on the college curriculum, but it was there. So I just picked that one. And that meant I could go on the road. I could hitchhike. I could meet all these cool people. I could ride in VW buses. I could, grow food. I could, smoke pot. I could do all these great things that seemed a lot more fun than being an accountant, or even being a psychologist, because those things were so programmed and fed to me by the society. And I think we have a society that we haven't even begun to realize how much diversity is possible and how interesting each one of us actually is as a being when we manifest our unique gifts, like each of us has, I think, really amazing gifts. But the society, we haven't set up enough ways for everybody to have a channel to be self-expressed, because we all have to make money, and money's been, like in certain ways that you make money. So these days today, it seems like millions of us are trying to find ways to make money that are outside of those old traditional channels. I certainly am, and you are, Alyx, and you are, Walt. We're all trying to look at ways, how could we just do what we love to do, something that feels really fun and turns our crank, and still be supported by it. And I think that's what's going on now in the world with thousands of people.
I was going to say, I think with the with social media being what it is now, there's so much of a broader understanding of you don't have to go to college to make money, but you have to do something. So figure out what you love and try to make money at that. And that's where you get all these Instagram influencers and what have you. It can be good or bad, but here's hope for the good.
Yeah. Well, we're in a transition.
Yeah, we are.
And like I say, millions of people are learning that, well, I'm going to stick with the thing I like. Like I like traveling, and I like doing adventure, extreme sport traveling. So I'm going to somehow make a business around adventure, extreme sport traveling,
Yeah,
and they do it. Some people succeed, and I wonder, a lot of people don't, like my daughter decided to be a soul singer, and she's really good, and she worked at it like crazy. But she's not a successful soul singer per se, She's an incredible singer, but she hasn't yet made a bunch of money doing it. Whereas my son found that he liked to make this particular kind of jewelry called wraps, where you wrap gold and silver thread, and he just totally succeeded. So now he's got, a ton of money, and he lives on an island in the Caribbean, and he's 31 years old.
Oh, my God, what am I doing wrong?
You got to get into jewelry and plastics. No, I'm kidding.
But what you're talking about is a valid point. And there's also a second point, I think, that goes along with this. Because when we're trying to figure out what is it that would really get us excited, what is it that we'd really like to do? Sure, we're also trying to figure in the monetary piece. But even just the part that we're excited about, a lot of us, we think about it like, well, this has to be the final answer. And what actually happens is it's the next answer. It's not the final answer.
Yeah.
So, like right now, I'm doing podcasts, and I intend to do podcasts for the foreseeable future. But already I'm feeling like, well, partly for the monetary reason, but also because I just feel this other piece that I need to have. I want more interaction with the audience. And so now I'm thinking about doing local workshops and adding that onto the podcast and having the two kind of feed each other,
Yeah.
Because there's something, and it isn't even so much that, like, it's not like I want to be a coach. You're a coach, Tom. You like that interchange. You like that energy of of working with people and so forth. And I've tried that, and that just really wasn't for me. That wasn't something I loved. I like the idea of being the presenter, being the MC, and saying, well, here's Tom Wells who's going to tell you about such and so, and here's Cindy Chavez who's going to tell you about this, and then here's Linda Armstrong who's going to lead you through this meditation. That's what I like the idea of doing. That to me is the fun part. Yeah. So that's the next thing I'm aiming at. And then when I get there, there's going to be something after that. I just don't know what. But the point is, there is going to be something after that. So it's really it's taking steps. It's working your way through trying things. It's not just trying one thing. At least that's the way I see it, anyway.
And I think we'll become a society. We are becoming a society where we support each other in that lifestyle. Somehow we're all going to work as an organism more and more so that each of us can go from one thing to the next. You can go from being really good at this particular thing to be getting something else that turns your crank, and you get into that. And, I believe that we are meant to be diverse and excited about our lives. And there's a way to do that with each other that won't be so methodical and, just, nose to the grindstone attitude all the time. It'll be more and more fun, Just that being a human being can be more and more fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what it's supposed to be. And the only way I know, and the only way I know of to do that is to actually be the participant, to be the person who dives in and does it. If we spend all of our time being just the observer, that's not going to get us anywhere. Not you guys have me half convinced you could do both at the same time. I'm not completely convinced, but I'm half convinced. But at the very least, you got to participate on some level. Otherwise, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's going to lead to my last question of the day, which is, okay, so what's your next passion? What's the next thing that you're going to dive into? I mean, you kind of hinted at yours, Tom, a little bit with the workshop that you're putting together. But is there another passion that goes along with that or comes after it? Or Alyx, what's your next passion? What are you guys thinking is the next thing that you're starting to zero in on? Like, yeah, that's looking really cool over there. What's that cool thing?
Well, for me, I'm liking this whole podcasting thingy, so I'm going to see how far it takes me. Okay.
And you are developing your own too, aren't you? I mean, you have your own podcast you're developing.
I have my own podcast. I just got my second sponsor, so
hooray! Congratulations.
Things are looking good.
Yeah, cool. Fabulous.
I just got to get more listeners, and that's the struggle.
Mm-hmm. Well, of course, it's only a struggle if you think it is, and I say that from experience.
Yes. You're absolutely right.
Isn't that annoying? I mean, it's really irritating to know this stuff. You say, "Oh, geez, I just did it again." Oh.
Yeah, I did it again.
So, okay, what? I cut you off, Tom, but what's your answer? What's your next passion?
Well, I guess it's still to develop these workshops because I kind of like you want to be more of a facilitator of everybody coming together to discover their unique gifts. You know, like in a like a room full of people where we're setting up different ways that we're in that discussion like we are right now. And so people come to those workshops and they leave feeling energized to go out and manifest more of who they are because they're getting support from the workshop to do it, in all kinds of different ways. And they're getting inspired also by the content input of the workshop to look at life in a way that's much more expansive, more possibilities. But I also kind of want to include music because I love songwriting. So I'm always looking at how am I going to include songwriting, but that could also be something I just do on the side as well. So I don't know. I mean, for a long time I wanted to work with people where everybody learned to play an instrument so that they could see that everybody has the talent to play something, and I just use a particular instrument that everybody can mess around with it. And anyway, that's a whole other area.
Ukuleles are good for that. You can learn a ukulele.
Or drums.
Quickly. Drums, yep.
Well, they're the little. I was going to use the little kalimba from Africa, the little thumb instrument. Those are pretty cool.
That's good. Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm very much in line with what you guys are talking about. And I also wanted to ask you, Tom, do you see it as being where you continue to be the coach and you're also doing the workshops and you're pursuing the music and they're all kind of tying together? Or do you see them as separate projects? No, you see them together.
I like to have it sort of tie together. Yeah. I mean, it would be great if I wish music and dance could be a part of my workshops, and maybe it will be. I just keep envisioning, I keep opening myself to possibility, like try to be in that energy of allowing whatever will unfold. Because like Abraham always says, it's all in your vortex. You just have to be in the position to let it come,
and be clear about
it. It wants to flow into your life. Mm-hmm. You have to have that feeling in your heart of such openness that you let it in. Mm-hmm. It seems like that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, I think you're right. I know that for
How
myself,
about you, Walt?
with the workshops particularly. Well, I do want to continue to do the podcast. I want to do the workshops. I want the two to kind of feed each other. And where the workshops are concerned, I mean, I'm starting off my first attempt at a workshop. I'm kind of doing a little market test to make sure it's going to work, and that should happen in the next couple of days, actually. But the first workshop is going to be aimed at relationships because they're really, I mean, you know this, Tom. They're basically 3, maybe 4 main topics that most people are interested in. There's relationships, there's money, there's health, and
career.
Career is the 4th one. Yeah, it kind of goes with money, but career is kind of its own separate thing too. So I'm thinking, well, wouldn't it be cool to get it to the point where I'm not just doing one workshop, I'm doing 4 workshops. And they're all worked into one weekend. So like the first half of Saturday is relationships, and the second half of Saturday is health, and then the first half of Sunday is careers, and the second half of Sunday is money. And now you can bring people into, they can go to whichever part they want to go to, and then there's this whole organic thing going on there. I'm thinking,
I think everyone's going to stay till Sunday.
What's that?
I think everyone's going to stay till Sunday because everybody wants to know how to manifest money. It's like, oh man, I've been waiting for this all weekend.
Yeah, right.
And I almost guarantee you
relationships and then work your way to money.
Yeah. Almost guarantee you that there's a lot of people doing what you want to do.
There probably are. There probably are. Yeah, but I don't.
Or at least trying to. Yeah.
But
no, it doesn't. It doesn't matter.
For you.
The more, the merrier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really think it comes down to who can connect to the audience the best. Whoever connects the best is going to reach their dream the fastest. And there's lots of room. Yeah. I mean, it's not like there are only a few people in the world who care about this stuff.
And it doesn't. I don't think anything has to be a competition. There can be. Yeah. It's like there's room for so much good to happen in the world if people just go for it.
Exactly.
I think.
Exactly. Yeah. I agree with you.
Life will just open up doors.
There
I mean,
is
who knows?
No
Walt could be the next, your workshops could be like the next TED Talks. I think you could be the next Walt Talk.
Walt Talk. I love it. That sounds like fun. Yeah, that sounds good. So if I organize Walt Talks, will you guys be among the first Walt Talk presenters? Will you do your Walt Talks?
Yeah. Of course.
Oh, okay. Will you fly us in to Connecticut? Or?
Well, wherever it is.
Sure.
I mean, I figured at this point, get it going locally, show that it works, and then build it up and maybe do like a big one in New York City, and another one in Chicago, and another one in Los Angeles, another one in Houston.
Those are too people-y for me, so I'll come via satellite.
Yeah, well, I know that. I wouldn't ask you to actually go there because I know who you are.
Unless it's like a cool place, then I'll go.
It's too big of a carbon footprint to fly everybody in.
But think of it this way. I'm actually thinking about it. If it's a weekend event, to me, that's an event where you have thousands of people there. So, Alyx, you're definitely going to want to be doing it via satellite. You're not going to want to be there in person. So, that's like a given, right?
Or I just, do my thing on stage and go back to my room and call me when we're ready.
Or you change. Something happens in your life, and all of a sudden you just want to be with people all the time.
Facts. Right. That could happen.
That could happen.
Change. What a concept.
That's how it was before. So who's to say it won't happen again?
Absolutely.
That's right. It totally could happen.
Mm-hmm.
And on that cheery note, I think we're going to draw to a close. Tom, just remind people, how do they reach out to you as a life coach? Because you're still doing that part. If they need a little personal assistance, how do they reach you?
They could go to my website, which is youarejoy.com, youarejoy.com. And there's a little button there. You could sign up for a free half hour of coaching with me, so you can check out what it would be like to do coaching with me.
Okay, and Alyx, you have your podcast on TV and the latest changes in the season of TV shows. How does somebody tune into that? How do they become a subscriber to that?
Most of the time I tell people to check out Spotify. The name of the show is called Spoiler Alert, but if you also go to anchor.fm and search for Spotify, that's the main place where you'll find it.
All right. So take a look for Spoiler Alert. That's the name of the program. Spoiler Alert.
Yes.
Alert. Okay. So there we go. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much. And thanks to our audience as well. We'll see you next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. We can't hear the music.